All right, this one's different. If you're a gym owner, a health or wellness coach, and you've ever thought to yourself, there's got to be a better way to do this, then this conversation's for you. Steve Pert, he's been in the trenches. He started like a lot of us, young, hungry, and just trying to figure it out. From resuscitating people to dealing with Wiccan dance rituals inside his gym, he's seen the full spectrum of what can go wrong and what can go right, and what needs to change. This is a man who went from operating 80,000 square foot health clubs to overseeing 140 franchise locations. Then to finally saying, enough, the system's broken, I'm building something better. That something better is Flexwork. And it's not just another gym. It's a platform built for professionals like you, trainers, gym owners, stretchologists, physical therapists, all to run their own business in private spaces, private premium spaces, I might add, all without giving up any of their income, their time, or their control. In this conversation, we'll get into the whole thing, okay? The journey, his mindset, and the model that's already changing lives. Let's get into it. So, Steve, good to have you on the show. And, I'm just going to dive right into it.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are listening to this and those who have been in the industry, similar to you, similar to me, they've had some crazy moments in the gyms. Right. And you've kind of evolved in this space. You've started as a trainer and you've done a lot of different things over your career, and weird stuff has happened. I mean, for me, one of the weirdest things, wasn't good by any means, but I had someone who had passed away in one of the gyms. I've helped do some cardiac resuscitation. I've seen, broken bones pop out of bodies. What's the weirdest thing that's happened for you?
Well, there's weird and there's tragic, and then there's plain strange.
Yeah.
But you said weird, so I'll try to be specific with the answers. I unfortunately, I've observed 2 deaths. One was a technician that was changing the light bulb in a basketball court, slipped and fell off the ladder, and that was tragic.
Wow.
I've been a part of 8 resuscitation code blues in my career, almost always in January and February, right? But you said weird. I operated an 81,000 square foot location, literally a block and a half off of Pleasure Point in Santa Cruz, California, a little boutique area called Capitola, and it's basically where surfers come from all over the world. It's got a rideable wave. It's a really cool town, but people didn't give us the history notes before we relocated there. And it's where like the beatnik 60s culture started. It's where Timothy Leary did all the LSD trials up at UC Santa Cruz. Right. In the 30s and 20s, I guess San Jose took a lot of the mentally ill and drove them out to this area and left them there outside the county lines. And then they populated and had kids with So this is this weird mix of cool beach town meets a lot of mental illness and just strange culture. Let's just leave it at that. Very Berkeley, California, just, but I would say one of the strangest things is my 3rd week, could be 4th week, but taking over this location, young guy, very excited. It's just basically, it's a giant beach house for a gym. It's great. It was a block away from the first CrossFit ever in the Santa Cruz location.
Oh, wow.
I think at Mudson's. So cool location, cool culture. And it was a large organization I worked for, In Shape Health Clubs. And I was coming in to basically add some new zeal and zest. And I remember this woman coming up to me rather aggressively in this really unique outfit, all black. I thought they were pearls, but when I looked closer, they're like bones hanging off, and you had dreadlocks going on. And she demanded, not asked, not requested, but demanded that I approve her and her Wiccan group to be able to come into one of our Group X rooms and dance naked because it was too wet in the forest where they normally gathered. And I thought my friends or someone's pranking me for sure. Right. I thought, all right.
Yeah, that's a normal thing. Like one of your buddies at the gym
the
is
camera.
Yeah.
What's going on? Ha ha. Good stuff.
Yeah, you guys got me.
She couldn't be more serious into the fact it was like she was going to start to create like a picket and like organized group, all this stuff. Right. So the answer came down to, let's see what we can do. We'll get back to you on that one. It's a
delay, kick the can.
It's a definite maybe, but absolutely not. How about that? Yeah. I remember going, okay. These guys are legit. They're serious. What did I get myself into? And I would say that that's probably the most tame story I have from that location, going all the way to having to ask a man who used to be a very, I guess, famous photographer for Time Life magazine back in the 60s and 70s. He would walk in a big trench coat and just butt naked, lay in our lobby and fall asleep and wait for one of us to come wake him up. So culturally, it was a shock. It was a learning lesson for a young Steve to go from Northern California 24 fitness culture to this.
How old were you back then?
Wow. This was like 2026.
Yeah.
Something like that, 26, 27, still young in the game. I mean, I had been in the business since, I was 20. But yeah, weird. That was the first weird one.
It's a wake up call, because I remember working with, going from small boutique gyms to working in big box gyms, or I should say the other way around, from big box gyms to small boutique gyms. And the big box clubs, you just see everything. And if you're in more metropolitan areas, you see even more of it. And it's things that, like, you don't expect that, right? You come out of, if you'd gone to college and gotten a degree and you're expecting to kind of get into this potential management role or be a trainer, because you got your cert, you're expecting like, hey, I train this way, I'm going to work with clients this way, very professional. And then you walk into these environments and it's a shit show. I mean, sometimes you're like, yeah, you don't know
that experience, because I didn't have that experience. So I started downtown Sacramento, 24-hour fitness, which is now the location of where the Sacramento Kings play. But at the time, that was one of the very first, what they considered like super sports. Mm-hmm. And it was right on J Street, which is like right outside. It was kind of this K Street. Like, it could be homeless, it could be sketchy, there could be some drug deals going on, and then it's a shopping area as well. So and it was right next to the Capitol. So you had this vibrancy of lobbyists and politicians and some money and people visiting. And so it was really unique and diverse, I guess you could say, for sure. There was a big, gay culture, and then there was like a fitness culture, and then there was a business culture, and everyone just kind of came together. And so right from the beginning, I was in this big pot.
Yeah. You got
anything goes, and I guess one story out of that one is I was just this young trainer who just got tapped on the shoulder to be able to work with clients. That's kind of my genesis. I didn't even know that was a job. And the GM saw me always there. I was in good shape. I was a former wrestler. And he said, I'll pay you to work out with these people. And I didn't understand what that job was. And the next day I'm a certified trainer, and 30 something days in, I had like 30 plus clients. And that's kind of my origin story. People just, I guess that wasn't normal. I didn't know the difference. And I was just hungry and figured out some basic things, and there it went. But because I was always there and always diligent and working, 9 hours a day with split shifts, and that was before you got paid to, prospect and all these different things.
Yeah, you're working, morning hours, taking a break for, hours, coming back at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I remember chasing this guy, because there's this guy would come in every once in a while and dare the team to chase him. He'd get on like rollerblades or roller skates. I mean, he's wearing micro shorts and like a mesh shirt, and he's like rollerblading around this club and like having people try to chase him, and like, what are we doing here? Like, why are we chasing this guy rollerblading or through this fitness club? And everyone's laughing, and the GM's like sitting up with popcorn, like watching us all, like,
yeah, enjoying the show.
Yeah. So There we go. We could spend hours and hours.
Oh yeah, sharing stories, man. So how did you start, in the industry? I mean, did you come in as like working front desk or customer service? I mean, because you evolved into the trainer, recognized by your team members that you're good at this. And I think this is another topic here, but I think trainers that are great are ones who have a great personality. It's not always, you can learn the skill set on how to be a great trainer, but the personality you can't teach. So how did you get...
It's interesting. So that's kind of it. I just alluded to it a little bit, but right away, something clicked where I thought, personal training for me was half theater and half science.
Yeah.
I was at the downtown 24-hour as a customer working out. I was a wrestler. I got injured. I didn't pursue it through college. I was still in great shape, and I was a little disillusioned with school, and I was taking a little bit of time off. I went to Cal State East Bay and in the Hayward, East Bay area. In fact, same town as where Mark Mashoff started his first gym, in San Leandro, and moved up to SAC to spend a little time with some friends, and just was working out. And the GM there just saw me all the time and engaging with people. And I wasn't training people, but people would gravitate towards me to lift. And it was just something I enjoyed doing and not really doing much else, honestly. And he just said, "Hey, you're always here. I could pay you to basically do this." Absolutely had no idea that was a job. None. And the next day, I'm a certified, maybe I wasn't certified the next day, but I went to the 24-hour cert over the weekend, a little sit and reach. I think I did a 3-site, and I was legit. And I just started working with people. But quickly it dawned on me, I said, wait a second, the comp plan says, one, if I educate myself, I can give myself basically 3 raises. So I immediately was like, what do I do? AFA, easy. Let's get it. Mm-hmm. Good, but easy. NASM, everyone says that's legit. Let's go. I got that in 3 months. And so I just wanted to make more money just doing what I was being paid to do. I mean, that was the only drive. And then I started looking around, and there were trainers who obviously had way more education. They had way more experience. I had none. Guys who went to D1 schools and were athletes, but a lot of them were just kind of standing around like this. And I didn't understand it.
Not approachable.
Well, just the energy, right?
Yeah.
Again, I come from wrestling, and I came from a high level program, and it was work, get in, grind, and you can't fake your outcomes, right? In combat, wrestling, fight, that if you've done the work, you're going to have probably a positive outcome. Mm-hmm. And you also know when you haven't done the work, you can't fake it. And I applied the same, I would say, work ethic, to that. And I just I looked across the way. I saw the trainers over here, and then I saw the sales team over here, and the sales team was just busy and cranking it out. And these guys were making money, and there was energy, and that's where everyone was at. And so why? I walked across the club, went to the sales team, introduced myself. Everyone looked at me like, "What are you doing over here?" I said, "Hey, I'm a new trainer. I'm doing my thing. What problem do you guys have?" They said, "Well, we don't sign everyone up that comes our way." I said, "Great. Well, what do you do with them?" "Well, we try to follow up, and we try to give them a guest pass, and we try to do these basic things." I said, "Cool. I have an idea. I want some customers and some appointments. I think if you put people in front of me, I'm going to, sell them on the experience. But I also know that they can't work with me unless they have a membership, right?" Like, "Yep." I said, "Great. So for everyone who either you sign up or don't sign up, fill up my appointment. Just give me everything you got. I'm going to be here from 7 a.m. to 9 at night. Let's go. And I'll have a 2-hour break. And if you do that, I will do my very best to make sure they have a good experience. So then they get the memberships that you guys need. And then that just gives me an opportunity, obviously, to have, more customers." They're like, "Let's go." And this is back in the day when 24-hour had something called the MAB, the Master Appointment Book. And I'm really dating myself. 2000.
Yeah, I know. You use the highlighters to highlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Green and yellow. Yeah.
Right. We called the Bible. Well, yeah. I highlighted it all out. And the next day, I think I had 4 appointments. And then the next week, I think it was my first day where my whole day, might have been, 3/4, but I think I had 6 or 7. And these people would show up. I would have a great experience. I'd make them feel special. I'd take them through some basic orientation components, PAR-Q, some would, some wouldn't. Okay. But people started joining. People started signing up training. And, 30 something days in, I had over 30 clients. And everyone was kind of looking at me like, what's going on? I said, well, I'm not doing anything special. Honestly, I'm not saying anything special. I'm not using any special language. I definitely am not using special skill sets. I'm applying some mindset of, if I can help you guys solve your problem, you guys are going to help me solve mine. And it's mutually agreeable. And these customers in the middle want what we both provide them: access to a facility, but also access to knowledge and a good experience.
Yeah. You know what is odd today? I don't think that happens the same way. And I don't know what it is.
Mm-mm. You talking about the mindset?
In the mindset of like coaches that work at clubs. It's almost kind of, I'm a trainer, so I'm deserving of just getting the client. So when the client comes, just give them to me. Right. It's not I could be wrong about this, but I really feel that's the case.
Experience, right?
Yeah.
So I would say my experience, over a breadth of 25 years and national internet, that existed then. That was this. Right. And these people weren't bad. I wouldn't even say that they were lazy. It was just kind of, a lot of them had a disjointed, I think, expectation. They went to school or they got their degree and then they came out. They thought, I'm going to work with all these athletes. And then the 36-year-old mom shows up late and she's not following her meal plan and they're all pissed off about it. And I thought, that's a customer. Like, that's the problem. If they were all dialed in, then they wouldn't be paying for it. So I just had a different, I didn't have that expectation. I was just like, hey, whoever's going to pay, as long as you're not super weird, right? For an hour of my time, I'm going to give them a great experience. They're going to have a good workout. They're going to be safe. The science will work itself out. But my expectation was not to go and train the next NCAA champion. My expectation was to help someone lose on average 18 to 20 pounds, show up, build some consistency, and help them change some healthy habits. And I enjoyed that. And I thought that was good. It wasn't setting a low bar, but on the other end of it, my clients showed up. They were consistent, and with consistency and good science and programming, the outcome, it's results. Mm-hmm. And so, we would have the wall of success, and out of the 10 that we would be able to show, I'd usually have 7 or 8 of my customers. And, it wasn't about being better. It was just, I just stayed focused on my comp plan. My comp plan said, put as many people in front of you, Steve, as often as you can, as frequently as you can, give them a good experience, keep them safe, and don't be shy about asking for money for your services and for that experience. Make it worth it. And
that was a springboard for you kind of leveling up your career, I would say, right?
That was the epiphany where I said, wait a second, don't overcomplicate this thing. And then 6-7 months later, district manager in the area, Tony Hernandez, great guy, came up to me and said, hey, you're killing it. You're crushing it. Can you duplicate this? Can you do this for other trainers? I said, I don't know. Maybe. And I said, what's that look like? Comp plan. And he gave me a comp plan. I said, I'll give it a shot. Next day, I'm a fitness manager. And they put me into a club that, had a little HR problem, the trainer and the front desk girl and, classes.
They always throw you to an area where it's like a little bit more of a challenge, and they want to.
It was like club number 3. It was up in Sacramento on Howe Avenue. I mean, there were holes in the wall, and I think things lived in it. You had to access it through an alleyway past. It was like behind an Old Navy. But again, I didn't know. You didn't know any different. It was just like, this is where I go. I was like, I can make 70 grand or 80. Let's go. My other option was I could be a waiter at Chili's or whatever else, And I got there and I found that the trainers were just like me, but they're all motivated a little bit different. Some money, some not. Some were riding bicycles to work and others were sharing couches. But the commonality is most wanted to do something positive for other people. There was a commonality. I found one who he was a bad dude. He was lazy. He was it's all about me. And that was an easy one to move because I said, hey, I'm going to max my comp plan. And all I need is for people not to be selfish and not to be lazy. And then we'll all work together to put as many clients in front of each other as possible. and have a good time and maximize this comp and have this company write us big checks. I mean, let's keep it simple. And so I got buy-in. I figured out some individual wants and needs, but it wasn't that diverse. And then I started looking at systems and processes, and overall, I just saw a common theme, which was everyone was just overcomplicating things. Mm-hmm. People were trying to be too smart. They were trying to use terminology and phrases and science terms, and it just didn't relate to the customer sitting across, who was just like, hey, what is it? I don't understand what you're talking about. And a lot of times it was I language. It was about the trainer. It was me. I'm going to do this. I can do that. I look this good, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't enough about the customer. And so I try to refocus the experience to make it about the customer. Because that was the other thing I learned as a trainer. These people, they show up for fitness, but a lot of them didn't care. They just wanted time for someone to listen. They wanted time for someone to make them feel a little bit heard or special or seen. It was good that it was in a positive environment like fitness, but it could have easily been a movie theater with a person. It could have been a bar with a bartender.
Yeah.
There was an experience that a lot of these people wanted. Not all, but a lot. And so I wanted to make sure that I reminded my team that you have to lean into that. Don't be a therapist. Don't be more than you are. Be credible and be authentic and speak easy language. And so I think that was my journey of saying, let's dumb this thing down and find efficiencies in the process, not complications.
So now let's just kind of take a step forward, because you have all that experience, right? You've lived through that. You've identified things within your journey in business where you learned how to work with people and how to maximize the output of the people that you are working with, which put you in a position of true leadership. And then you go on this path and this journey of going, there's something missing. I mean, because you could have continued down that path, right? You could have stayed with, 24 UFC gyms. You could have continued to grow on the ladder. But you had kind of this moment where you go, things are not working right for the training community. Mm-hmm. Where were you at when you kind of had this? Because I remember in the times that I, built my gyms or did my training programs, the things that I had developed for businesses, I could give you specifically where I was at, what time it was during the day, and kind of how that aha moment happened. And I go, okay, well, I got to change some things. It's kind of that, business plan on a napkin thing. Where were you at when this happened for you, where you go, I'm doing this with flex work. I'm making flex work happen.
Well, the seed started to sow in about 2015. And that was my culmination at In Shape Health Club. So right after that beach town experience, I was a district manager. I had a really unique opportunity to join a good friend of mine to this day, and early, I would even say mentor and peer, Josh Lyon, who was a former VP of fitness for 24 Hour Fitness. I believe he's a SVP out at Bay Clubs now, but he's always just been a very well respected, very smart guy and fitness. And he was my district manager when I was just a trainer, and we basically elevated each other throughout our careers. Well, he was pulled into In Shape Health Clubs by the brothers. At the time, they were operating with Custom Built. You remember those guys? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they had 1-star Yelp reviews across the 82 clubs that they had. And, it was terrible. They were selling, and then trainers were given sessions, and there was no follow-up, and there's no accountability. It was a hot mess. But they were being paid $5 million or something like that a year for them to be able to operate, the fitness organization and business aspect of the clubs. Well, In Shape, in their wisdom, said we should bring this in-house. We have a greater opportunity to take it in-house, not only for revenue, but also just customer experience. 1-star Yelp reviews, it all comes down to truth, contracts, authenticity. Like, they were moving from 3-year contracts and trying to evolve their brand from that old school, got to trap you, to we have to earn you. Yeah. And they brought in Josh, and he called me up and said, "Hey, Pert," that's my last name. He said, "Hey, Pert, like, I'm going to go do this big job. Like, you want to do it?" And I said, "Let's go." And so essentially In Shape fired custom built, kicked everybody out of all their locations. And Josh and I, from ground up, built their whole PT vertical. That means, we're talking legal, the way we sold, the implementation of a manager called a PTM in every single location, essentially a duplicate, but a more elevated sense of a fitness manager, activating, old sessions that have been paid for, but were lost and just like dead in the water and not being followed up with, like the whole business vertical, and then integrating a new vertical into a company that had been doing its thing for like 20 something years. So the old guard was going, wait a second, this is not what we do. This is what you, and it was fun. So it was politics, it was legal, it was operations, it was hiring, training, developing, and it was from Northern California all the way down to Lancaster. So it was wild. And it was hair on fire, and we did it. We created it, we built it, and we completely changed the trajectory of fitness. I think when we started, fitness was like less than $100,000 a month. I don't know. And then in 14 months, we were well over like 1.8 million a month. That was building it and still driving the revenue. So, and then the Yelp reviews went from 1 to, I think on average, like 4. So the experience for the customer, most importantly, changed. And we all know in fitness, if you put the right people in the right place at the right time, and the experience is good to great, and people stay safe, the outcome is inevitable. That people are going to buy, they're going to purchase, they want the experience to continue. And I think that was the other thing. I never worried about the outcomes. I focused on the process, because the outcomes to me was inevitable. If we practice, if we put in the right policies and people, the outcomes are probably going to be greater than what you want for our budgets or our goals. And so as I started to really build, we had to hire 500 trainers plus across, because everyone custom built. I said, when you turn on the lights on the situation, you get 2 things. You get the rats that scurry, or you get the people that come out of the shadows and say, thanks for showing me the light. Most of it was scurrying. And so we had to go and hire, 500 trainers, and we started working with, the UCs and trying to recruit from the colleges. And it was just startup. It was just, there was no game plan. And that was fun. And I thrived, and, we were able to bring in, other regionals and grow it. And as I started talking to more professionals, both in the clubs, so operators in the clubs, GMs, DMs, RVPs, who are my peers and collaborating with, customers who ultimately are the ones that we have to validate our product and services to, and then the trainers, the service providers, I started to see data like all start to kind of align no matter where it was. And I was a relentless note taker. I have journals, I've got, people call them my manifestos. And I just started to data just started to overstep. So that's where it started. And then it really started to get interesting again, because when I went to UFC, I was a national franchise director. Amazing job, great people. I had a national and international platform now. I thought things were going to change. Miami wasn't going to be the same as California, and Tokyo wasn't going to be the same as Ontario. And it was. People still wanted the same things, and they had the same challenges and the same problems and issues. And I thought, well, we have more money and we're a big organization. There's smarter people. Like, we could solve this. And it just started to compound. And then I had the ability to, outside my day job of running 141 locations across North America, I was able to consult in the mornings and the evenings internationally with a few groups, because one of my roles was I was able to do all of the training for the Franchise Institute. So if you were a franchisee, both internationally or nationally, you would come to Newport, you'd work with the team, but I was essentially the MC, the operator that could teach you the vast breadth of how you're going to make money and return on your investment in this thing. And so I established relationships and credibility, and groups would call me, hey, can you come to Egypt to help? Can you come to Tokyo? Of course, no, I'm not moving, but
right.
I thought, hey, there might be a good opportunity. And we had a sales team internationally, but we had zero support operationally. And so, I said, hey, on my dime, these people are needing help, and I can continue the good work that I'm doing nationally, internationally. That's it. Well, we don't have to pay you and you'll do that work too? I said, yeah. I said, you got our permission. So I started consulting some of these groups, and I was able to implement some of these thoughts and ideas that a lot now are implemented into flex work. So I almost got to A/B test some things that I thought, if we can implement some efficiencies in the way we design or build or how we train or sell systems. That was another thing. Most systems like ABC and Club Ready and all these legacy platforms, they were only US. Mm-hmm. So all these groups would go international, and they're like, we don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Right. We don't even, who do we use and who's credible, and payment processing on the back end and other. And I started to become an expert in systems and processes and back end and CRM and innovation and, ecosystems, and just out of sheer curiosity. And of course, being a source of support. And just, I'm from Silicon Valley area. And so I've always been kind of, if there's a problem, let's look for the solution versus cry about the problem.
Right.
And it was just prior to COVID where this thing was aching in my heart to say, hey, wait a second, like there's an opportunity. And I think the last part was, my current partner is the master franchisor for all the UFC gyms in Japan, but he's also a big partner in Think Fitness, which is the largest franchisor of Golds in the world. They've got 130 plus locations out there. Old legacy Golds. And I helped him build his first 3 locations prior to COVID and essentially during COVID, all through Zoom. And we had to translate like backend and CRM into Japanese and kanji, and we had to work through payment processing. Japan doesn't really use Visa and MasterCard. They use something called, I think it's like ECB or something like that.
Yeah.
Either way, it's like Western Union to you and I. And so being able to help put this all together and then train these people and then have them successfully open and operate, his peers and competitors took a look and said, well, what are you guys doing? And, he came to me and said, hey, we could package this up and create an international consultancy company, Steve. Like, let's go. And I basically said, I've been cooking this thing now for 7 years. I don't want to do a consultancy. I've got a brand that we can build and implement worldwide that's going to solve a global solution for millions of customers. I don't want to spend the rest of my career building other people's companies. Let's build ours. And he said, pitch it. And I pitched it to him. 24 hours later, we had a deal.
Awesome.
And then we got financed. Well, he financed me, I think like 8 days before it like shut down in COVID. So these timelines are very, very interesting. But to answer your question, to keep it concise, it was over years and years of data and observation and just being relentlessly curious. I've always been a trainer. And the first thing we learn as trainers is park you. Be curious. Don't assume. Mm-hmm. Don't assume that this person wants this or that. Take the time. Ask the question. Be curious. And a lot of times in sales and in what we do, if you ask the right questions, they're going to give you that answer and the solution that you would never come up with on your own. And
so you have now this brand.
Yeah.
And I look at it as a huge opportunity because I think there's a lot of co-working spaces that are probably trying to figure out how they can be utilized or maybe downsizing a bit. And you have a lot of, because a lot of people are working from home or doing even this, that whole thing with COVID has put a lot of people working from home, and a lot of people have adopted that and stayed that way. So the commercial spaces are trying to reinvent the way that they can get used. And I think your model fits perfectly for that because you're repurposing that space essentially for it's a WeWork meets UFC gym, smaller concept, but with the ability of you being able to rent it out. So I want to kind of get an understanding, how is it that a business owner comes in, they come to you and they say, hey, I'd like to have 10 of these across, whatever area, whatever territory. Mm-hmm. How are they going to even make money off of one location, right? Because I look at the model and I see that a lot of it's hourly. I think you have some membership-based options.
Yeah, very few.
Yeah, but a lot of it's hourly based, right? So I'm going to rent space out of flex work to do my business there. Okay, I could be a physical therapist, or I could be I could do yoga in there as an instructor. I could be a personal trainer. I could just be a general population person coming in, if I understood correctly, coming in and using the space because I don't have a gym that I want.
Keep it simple. Anyone can be our guest.
Yeah.
So I'll answer 2 questions. Let me give you a little bit more concise summary of what FlexWork is, and then let's talk about how it makes money for our investors, because that was one of the last things I observed at USC. Great brand, amazing people, but I learned that a lot of franchisees bought a job.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, why would they buy a job? Why would he pay money from his medical practice to then go buy a job? He doesn't need a job. He's a doctor, or he was successful in insurance, or whatever else it is. And some thrived, but I just thought, And then I was able to lean into Crunch. I have friends that own Crunches, and Crunch was a sister brand. And again, I just started getting curious, and through my due diligence, I realized, wow, it's not uncommon for franchisees to actually just buy a job.
I think that's very common. I think a lot of franchisees buy into a business thinking that it's an investment opportunity, a vehicle where they can get a return on investment. And then all of a sudden they realize, well, this isn't really what I was expecting.
I'm here 12 hours a day.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What's going on? That I didn't know that, right? I had always been an operator in the corporate structure, trainer to, director.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not until I got into the franchising side of things that was one of the final observations I think that I needed to learn in my career, which was, okay, what's the point of franchising? It's to serve as a vehicle for investment and return on that investment. Otherwise, what's the point? If you're a fan of something, that's great, but then just go be a member or whatever else. And so that was one of the commitments I made to myself. I said, if I'm going to build this brand, I have to build it as an investment vehicle. Not only do I want to attract investors, not just fitness enthusiasts, but it makes no sense. And we have to solve a problem versus just create another fitness option. And that's really what the origin of FlexWork is and what we're doing. We are a co-working space for the fitness industry. And I'm going to clean up your hybrid. I definitely took WeWork as an inspiration, hex FlexWork. But I read, WeWork's white paper, whether you like them or not, Adam, their founder, created something that was very dynamic, and he wasn't the first co-working space, but became the biggest. You don't grow an $86 billion valuation company out of nothing. You created, community, and there was a sense of purpose, and it wasn't just cool space. And then I took Salon Suites, which was a very similar dynamic in a massive multi-billion-dollar industry, health and beauty. It was the same problem, different widget. Hairstylists and nail technicians and different things who already had a book of business had only 2 options. One, go share a chair at a salon with a bunch of people they didn't really want to share it with and be around because it was drama and this or loud, or it was dirty or wasn't to their desired, or go build their own salon and then take on that capital and that time and that responsibility. Those were their choices. And some real estate guys got together and said, wait a second, there's millions of you out there. What do you need? And they found they needed about 90 square feet, a sink, a chair, signs, booking software. And they were able to come in and rent, 20 of them in a 8,000 square foot space. And it penciled out and worked. And they were solving a problem where a customer was saying, we have a high level need, and that need, if it's met, we will, obviously pay for that solution. And then I took Uber because I've just never been a fan of the membership model, even though subscription is big and, SaaS companies are great. And, that's been some of my inspirations. But the memberships to me was always a fallacy. Back even at 24-Hour Fitness as a kid, we'd go to these big, district meetings and we'd say, yeah, we enrolled 700,000 new members. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was 100,000, whatever. Yeah, great. Yeah, but we canceled 698,999. But we don't talk about that, right? So all this effort and then there would be some months where we had more attrition. Then, we'd sign up, at a club level, we'd sign up 60 and then we'd cancel 70 to lose 10. So for me, memberships and drafts was never safe. It's an illusion. Like you're always playing this thing. And to me, that's also where a lot of the money, time, and effort went into with the staff, the ops managers, the GMs. It was chasing after bad debt. It was when you came into the club, do you belong here? Are you in good standing? Are you not in good standing? So there was almost this adversarial, like right from you walk in, coming to a front desk. It's like you're coming to court and appearing before the judge to make sure that I'm good to go before I'm allowed in. Right. And I wanted to change how it felt. I wanted people to be our guest. And I wanted Flexwork to be a place where people felt like it was theirs. Like they had true ownership. And if you have that true ownership, it's like going into a gym where the culture is people put away their weights and they stack. It feels good like that versus you go in and it's all trashed. That comes down to a sense of ownership and belonging. And I also wanted it to be very frictionless. I couldn't build a brand on having experts. That was the other challenge, right? In our industry, I think the level of expertise has gone down and down and down and down and down. But the expectations of pay and entitlement has gone up. And I don't want to build two things. I don't want to build the success of my company or someone else on a 16-year-old who's underpaid, but they've got to be great, but we make them do 10 or 12 things, or on a overpaid general manager who, if they don't show up and really deliver on all the KPIs and with a great attitude and a leadership dynamic and have this perfect harmony of skills and energy level, then my location's never going to win. And so that's why I implemented the hybrid of adding in an Uber, because I wanted to do a frictionless booking model that incorporated something that I thought, well, if I can add layers of security and access controls, not just one, like in Anytime Fitness where you walk in and now anyone can be in there, but I added 3 levels of security and access controls. So we basically created almost like gates where we built our own proprietary system where you buy it like an Uber ride. So that means it's intentional. I know I'm coming to the gym, whether I'm a trainer or I'm an individual coming from out of town and I want to use this place because it's cool and private and premium. Or, doesn't matter why you're a guest, but you get your digital key, you show up, the lobby opens up. I have one host, pay very well, but they already know that Michael's showing up at what time to do what, to go where. And their job now isn't to sell you anything. Their job is to hand you that towel and make sure you have that experience. And by the second or third time, just like an Uber ride, your first time's a little weird, but by your second or third time, you're like, why wasn't it always this easy? Mm-hmm. And I harmonized from the concept, like ground up, design, operations, and technology to basically work together and to remove menial tasks from the humans that I was going to have operate, because fitness is connection. It's still people, but we do a lot of menial tasks, 140 calls a day, checking people in and out, right? Going after bad debt, ringing people up for drinks, things like I call menial tasks that when I removed most of that friction, they could stand tall, they could be happy, and they could do the one thing that we always say you need to do, which is, highs and goodbyes and good names and make sure people have a good experience. And so, that's maybe hopefully the answer that you're looking for. That was part one.
So I have a question, kind of tagging on to that. So as I'm thinking about your space and
how to make money. Yeah. Gotcha.
Well, definitely how to make money, but, what I'm thinking about your space, I am envisioning, because I haven't been to one, but I've gone through the website and I've looked at the, square footage and all these things. So you have basically like 3 models, and each of them are a little larger, right? So it goes from like small, medium to large space size, kind of like a WeWork office setup.
We call it flex spaces.
Yeah.
We have a standard, we have a plus, and then we have a studio.
So how many different, how much total square feet do you need to have a flex work space, right? Because you have multiple of those in one unit, I'm assuming.
Yep. Yeah. And so right now I'm in our headquarters at City Center in Carmel, Indiana, and we have 8 spaces inside a 3,000 square foot footprint. Okay. I'm in a plus space right now, and you can see So we basically have three sides. We have our vanity, which is obviously our mirror. We have our custom built wall of equipment, 2 racks, all handcrafted in Italy. And then I have my technology suite here, which is probably a whole nother podcast. And we're in 205 square feet, which is ideal for 4 good sized men. And so they can do small group in here. But it's really good, obviously, for 1 to 4 individuals.
Okay. So I'm a coach. I want to use that space, and I'm going to bring in four clients. What's my cost?
You would bring in 3 clients because it's you plus 3, unless, and we have this all the time, we have 4 plus spaces all side by side. If let's say you had 4 clients, well, then you just get 2 spaces, open up the door. We have our functional, hallway, the turf outside as well. And then you could, arbitrate between the 2. With our technology, again, this is a whole nother conversation, but our ecosystem is also proprietary, but we've created an ability in partnership with Sony and others to have any device, whether it be mobile, laptop, or tablet. Each room has its own private server. And so you can securely, we go beyond casting. We remove casting and mirror casting. It's basically a 3-tap process. So you can play any app on any device that you want, as long as it's not adult content. That means you can be in here on your trainer house. I mean, I could be on the Zoom right now instead of on my laptop. I could be using our surround sound system. You see the lighting above us. It's the same as the Apple Store. It's studio quality. So you don't need O-rings anymore, and you can optimize, your lighting settings. But we have clients that come in that pull up their app, and they have a trainer in Miami, or they have a trainer in New York. We have trainers that come in here and record all their content and then go home and then put it into their clients' apps. And then their clients go all over the place. Some come back to here, but others stay in their home, or they go to Planet Fitness and put their phone on the ground and got to deal with it that way. But I wanted to build an ecosystem of experiences and opportunities for professionals and clients to have, right, different tools. Mm-hmm. So the day of just one-on-one training is removed. But back to your question, Mike, you come in and you have 2 clients in each space, and it's $22 for each space. That's your cost. So if you were charging each client, let's say $80 an hour, the average rate here, by the way, is 84. But let's say you're doing 50, and now you had 4 clients, that's 200. Your hard cost is 44. The rest is your net, right? And so that's what I built either 18 or 22. Now, each location, depending on your cost and overhead, as far as franchisees go, like Miami could probably charge a little bit more. We had a group out of the UAE that they wanted to charge 75. Great. If the market dictates it, let's be smart about it, but you can. But 18 and 22 is the base rate that our pro forma, that we built out. It allows someone like you as a professional to say, I know what it's going to be. So there's consistency across business to be able to build.
I think, and I could be way wrong because you're the one who did all the research on this, but as I'm thinking through your model, what if you were to, instead of the payments being, a dollar amount, $22, just like you would use an Uber, almost kind of tie people up a little bit. So they're buying credits, and those credits are valued at a little bit more than the $22. So they always have credits left over that maybe they would come back and use. And you could push that into the app. So push notifications saying you have unused credits.
We do
to try and get them to, you guys already do that.
Yeah. So
That's
we
awesome.
do it. Yeah. There's 2. And I love that because that's smart. You're an operator. I've lost visual, so if you can still see me, great, but I'm not seeing myself in the screen. So we keep it simple. And the simple way is, this is the Uber model, because I would say if I'm an expert, and I shy away from that word because that tells me that if you're an expert, you're not willing to learn new things. And I always want to be curious and learn, but I would say I'm pretty credible in understanding the buying behaviors and the psychology of fitness professionals. And unlike salon suites where they want rents and leases, mm-hmm. If I said you had to pay Michael $1,600 a month to have your own space, I just moved out 95% of every trainer in the country.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And so I thought, how do I get the trainer to buy in a new way? Because this is a whole different opportunity. Nobody even knows something like this exists. Because once they buy, it's like an overweight client trying the gym for the first time. Once they have a good experience, they're more apt to continue the process. And so the pay-as-you-go model made it, some people said, oh, that's kind of risky. But no, because it's extremely sticky. And then I built out something called passes where, of course, so quick example, we have our top trainer here financially, a gentleman, his name is Pat Charette. He owns a company called EFS Indy. Great guy. He services about 154 hours a month. On average, probably $88 an hour. He roughly probably does about 14,000 gross monthly in Indianapolis as a trainer. That's top 1% in most markets. Yep. And he's done it for over 2 years now. So it's not just he did it once. And the point is he was all over the place, like everybody. He was training, people's homes. He was in and out of gyms. That was the challenge and the need that I saw everywhere. And we gave him one location. He was able to increase his rates 25% because we don't charge gym memberships, annual enhancement fees, anything else. All we do is charge one person for the space, and that person then can bring in their guest or their client to enjoy the space professionally and safely, of course. And so someone like Pat over time was like, hey, I don't want to book 152 hours. And that's the other piece. You can only reserve a space if you prepay for it, Michael. That's how I avoid going after bad, quote unquote, debt. Because with dues, I mean, I've been in clubs, and I'm sure you have too, where people are using credit cards. The average default rate was 16 to 21%.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's just because they were using a card, right? Not because they were a low budget person. That's nice markets. Mm-hmm. So I thought, all right, I don't want to do all that, and I don't want to chase bad debt. So if it's intentional, like an Uber, it's no different. Hey, we'll come get you, but you got to have your card on file. You got to tell us how much it's going to be, and that you can pay for it. Same thing at FlexWork. So once he started getting his bookings, he's like, wait a second, I like this space. How do I keep it mine? I said, well, the only way you keep it yours is you pre-book, which is, of course, another behavior that I want to imbue because the best professionals obviously book 2+ weeks out. And he said, great. So he started booking out. So I created passes, 10, 20, 50, and 100 hours of essentially, like you said, prepaid credits. It's a bank inside our app. And he purchases sometimes 2 Flex 100s a month, which is $2,200 a piece. He gets a rebate right on top. So I'm giving you an incentive, which is 10%. So that's margin for him. Brings down the cost of his rooms. And his bank just sits there. And then when he wants to reserve a standard, it takes out 18. When he wants to reserve a plus, it takes out 22. When he gets a bar or a drink, it takes out $3, whatever else it is. And then as it gets low, he can just replenish it. It also allows him to do cancellations and refunds on his own, so he can manage his own. It's almost like his own ledger. It's just streamlined, and it puts the booking and reservations and financial management entirely in his hands. And it doesn't rely on him having to call my staff, go through a website, and have people comb through, a bunch of payments and invoices.
So what is it? I looked at your some of the information that's public on FDD.
Yeah.
So if the information that I have is correct, it's anywhere from 900 to 1.3 or something like that to really get one started. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was just talking to a prospect today. We built 2, and it's a good juxtaposition of a very high end. The location I'm in now is our flagship. We are turning a profit in 2 years, which is great. I mean, from going from a napkin and first build out concept to profitability in 2 years, I think is pretty significant. And then we have our first franchise location, and that's a downtown urban location. They also build a mezzanine, so it's 4,600 square feet. But I think that was a question you had. So 3,000 square feet in a nice rectangle is optimal for the smallest location. No smaller. I would not envision a FlexWork being larger than 4,500 square feet. Mm-hmm. It would have to really incorporate into a market where you had professionals wanting different spaces, like the studio. We have no studios at the city center location, which is basically just an open space. It's 300 square feet, and it's designed for dance teams, yogis, exercise physiology, more functional. Physical therapists can come in with their tables and whatnot. It's great because there's no equipment, so the build out and it's just a technology and lighting implementation, but it serves more professionals in a wider net. So if you're in a metro market where there's more yogis, for example, then maybe you'd want one or two more studios. But it's always pluses and standards. But yeah, I would say it's about 900,000 to 1.3, 1.35. But when I say that, that's every dollar you're going to need. So some people kind of play with their FDDs and say, well, we're not going to add in the operating costs.
Right.
We're not going to add in, certain components that are
some soft costs that you might have that they don't include.
And the two that we built and three that obviously are on board to build, we've gotten less than $100 a square foot in TI from the landlords. So the landlords sought us out, love it because it goes into a small footprint. It's a premium draw. We add and draw in local independent fitness professionals, so service providers, especially the groups who are like multi-tenants. So they've got 100 apartments above, and then they've got retail below. We can now be a paying tenant that drives an experience for their tenants. Then they don't have to go build the boring gym space that they can't monetize.
Right.
So there's a lot of, again, building this. It's not going to solve every problem, but I definitely built it with landlords and developers in mind. That was the other thing with UFC. It was so hard to find the real estate. Like nobody wanted to give someone 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 square feet. You'd had to go to tier 2, tier 3 market even to afford it in the first place. The build out $4 or $5 million later and 2 years down the road is way more expensive than you thought. Your time to start and recoup was, so everyone's pissed off by the time they get to me and going, I thought this was going to be faster and less money.
Right.
My company only succeeds if my franchisees open them and then drive them successfully. So what's realistic
for, I know that the average owners, who are kind of absentee owners of a or a fairly profitable Anytime Fitness, they're earning somewhere between 70 to 80 a year if they're primarily absentee. If you look at the Orange Theories, I think they're in the hundreds. People are when they're going to go look at a franchise, they're going to weigh out all options. So why would they want to choose your option?
Yeah, there's certain things that obviously I can't make promises of performance on things like that. But I can say, the location I'm sitting in right now, all in is, and this includes my equipment loans that'll be gone in about 20 months, and because we've been working on those for 3 years now. And this is all cost: labor, rent, liabilities, insurance, you name it. My full P&L, it's about 28,000. Well, we've exceeded that. And we're on track to be at, 40,000, I would say within, 4 months at, a very, very steady incremental increase. So that's anywhere between 12 and 14,000 net. And the costs as we grow don't really grow because I'm not adding in like commissions. I'm not adding in or labor.
And I would say the advantage is too, your equipment doesn't get beat up.
Nope.
Like it normally would in a traditional gym. So
you have very low utilization. That's right.
Exactly.
I mean, the maximum utilization in a single space in a day is going to be 14 workouts.
Mm-hmm.
Maximum. And we're still, when we come to utilization, we've gotten away from that KPI, but how many spaces we have, how many hours we're open, what's our utilization. But we're about 30% at the city center. And on our pro forma, we used to look at utilization, and at 42%, people's minds just exploded. Not at 80%, not 90%, right? But now what we look at is it comes down to our core customers. And, if you're in a market and you're thinking about a flex work, this is what we tell our people who are inquiring. If you believe you're in a market where 26 to 28 trainers, coaches, or professionals have the need for this solution and this service, and they're willing to service only 60 hours a month. So it's still a very part-time professional. That's 15 hours a week. You believe you can get to that within a year? You're making money. Just that alone, just that driver. And then we have secondary and tertiary drivers alone. It's not just space reservation, but that's a challenge, I think, of the brand is we have so much on the back end, like our technology and our services, that it's tough to talk about it all. We lose the room. So we just say, hey, Michael, come be our guest. If you're a trainer right now, I'm not hard selling you. I'm just saying, come be our guest right now. I'm not going to talk to you about anything. The second you walk in the door, 95% of what you have in your mind is going to be dissipated, and you're going to have an aha moment. How does it look? How does it feel? The culture, how you're greeted, how you literally are welcomed in. And this feels like this is my multi-million-dollar fitness facility. This is great. How am I getting away with this? The space, the equipment, the smell, the look, like the premium environment, the privacy aspect. And then, we go from there. But, we have two ancillary services. One, something that we created called Flex Connect. Essentially, I created a Match.com service to connect trainers and aspiring clients who are calling us through our lead services. And it really only takes about 10 minutes of our time to do a very light par queue. And we put clients and customers together. We take a fee for that service and then allow the trainer to close and take and service, that customer. And that's been the biggest driver of success. And people go, wait a second, we have private space now. I get to run my own business the way I want to do it in a very dignified and super cool environment. You basically created the best environment for a professional to operate in, all the tools, all the toys, all the equipment I need. I can do it as little or as much as I want. And I have an ability to have high dollar, high frequency customers placed in front of me for me to close and then service. Yes, please. Without any catches. The hardest thing usually people go, what's the catch?
Right.
The catch is you have to want to do it. You have to want to be your own boss. You have to be a professional. And don't mess it up. I mean, essentially that's it. And the other part too is we provide all kinds of support services, because if we just allow these trainers and coaches to go from being someone's employee, which the vast majority in the world are, to then stepping in to be their own boss, it would take too long. That was the first thing I observed, Michael, was first kind of customers that came in. Pat was an example of the ideal customer. He looked at me. We talked for 30 minutes. He said, tell me why this is not a scam or why this isn't make-believe, because it sounds too good to be true. Right. 30 minutes in, after talking to me, he goes, I'll be back in a week with all my customers. And he did. He was. And he was a first, early adopter, first movers kind of guy. But most people come in and go, all right, how do we do it? What's the catch? How much? And then I'll be back. And the I'll be backs were paralyzed by what they thought they needed to do to prepare to come back. Mm-hmm. They saw trainers in their own brand, their own logo. They saw people like streaming, content on our TV monitors. And they're just like, wow, I'm in gray sweats and a Nike shirt. And I'm
right. I can't make it. Yeah.
Yeah. I got to get all this stuff ready. It was like the overweight client saying, hey, Michael, I want to work out with you. It'd be great. I'll start working out.
I love it.
And then I'll get in shape to come work out with you. And that blew my mind. I didn't anticipate that. And so what I knew I had to do was I had to work on a system and processes to help expedite the decision-making process of our customers. And we've gotten really, really good at that, where we provide logo and branding and support mechanisms. And we call it work solutions. So everything that we would provide to a franchisee coming in, we've already built. We already know. We've anticipated that need. Our customers pretty much have that same need. We just had to have them access it at obviously a much lower dollar point and at an a la carte. So they didn't have to feel like they had to spend all this money right away. They could come in with one or two customers, spend $100 to get a logo, get their own URL, get off of Gmail, and all of a sudden now they're legitimate. And then they can start to build and compound their business. And I have a team that can help them do it along the way at their leisure. And it really accelerates their ability to stay focused on what we want them to focus on, which is your customers.
I love it.
WeWork does the same thing, right? If you're a customer going to a WeWork and you have a law firm, they already know you need Dropbox and software, and right, they got cups, and just don't overthink it. Just focus on acquiring customers and do what you were trained to do in your law firm. And we'll provide you with the support and the infrastructure for the most part, so you don't have to spend time, money, and energy on these little things. So we don't talk about that enough. But yeah, it's an all-in-one, all-encompassing ecosystem of support and focus. But we say all the time, we'll leave you alone if all you want is just space. But over 90% of our customers who come in want support. They want to ask questions. They want to see how other people are doing it. So it's nice because it's a very hot lead now. They're coming to us as experts versus leave me alone. Don't sell me something. I got it. Great. Have fun. So the work, once our customers, mostly the professional, they're in here, it's much more collaborative. People are learning again. And these coaches, they still want to coach. Being on your own and being your own boss, it's scary. It's lonely. Nobody really has all the answers. And so when people go, oh, wait, we're not just going to be on our own. There is credibility to help when we want it. Cool. That's helpful. And it's accelerated dozens of our customers' careers.
Yeah. So for all of you listening, I mean, you've heard it from the beginning all the way to where it's at today, and you guys are slated. I mean, you're anticipating having how many by the end of 2030? You have
2030?
Yeah, you have a set number that I read somewhere that you guys were looking to have open.
Well, 2030 might be a little aggressive, but domestically, we believe we can do 1,200, and internationally, we believe we can double that back again, because it's the same problem everywhere. But by 2030, selling and opening obviously is two different metrics. We'd like to have 50 by 2030.
Okay. So if you guys want to get involved, I mean, you've heard the whole story from Steve. Steve, where can they get information on how to get more information, or even, where do they go? So that way you're inviting them to come see the space and smell it and, experience it firsthand. How can they do this? How can they get involved?
Yeah, there's three places. I think the first place is just go to our Instagram at Flexwork Fitness. Our Instagram is, everything's internal. My team is internal, so we can move fast and tell authentic stories. I believe in the feedback from our audience is that it's a window into what Flexwork feels like and looks like if you were our guest, versus, games and funny, memes and things like that. So it can give you a real good sense of the aesthetic, the culture, testimonials of real people working with real clients and having real careers. The second place obviously is our website at flexworkfitness.com, and it's Flexwork with two E's. So Flex Work with an E there. There is a component for inquiries for franchise, and I'd love to talk to those individuals. Or they can just reach out to me via email directly at ceo@flexworkfitness.com.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll put all this in the show notes. So if anyone has any questions, obviously just go through the show notes. You'll find it. You click at the links, and we'll take you right where you need to go. Steve, pleasure, man, having you on. I love listening to the stories that you had, and kind of the start all the way to what you're doing today, and looking forward to having you back on here. Would love to hear the tech side of things, because I think, like you said, that's another show. But then also have you just back on to see what's happened with Flexwork and like where it's growing, because I'm sure that as this evolves, there are going to be more things that you add to it.
Yeah, we really appreciate the opportunity. It's fun to talk to operators who have deep context, and that understand that we're really trying to solve an unmet need that's pretty large.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks again, and everyone else that's listening. See you guys on the flip side.